Now from Atlanta News First Plus, this is Sports Tonight.
Hey, welcome to Sports Tonight. Woo! Don't you love that open?
It's a little bit, makes it a little bit more complicated to open the show, but
You know what? I feel more comfortable at a place of just being complicated, right? I mean, makes it more fun.
makes you feel better when you pull it off, right?
Yeah. So, Ellie, how you feeling on this Thursday?
I'm feeling all right. How about you?
I'm feeling good. We were just talking before we started today. We've never done a show together.
No,
Crazy, ain't it?
No, I'm usually behind the boards. I'm usually producing.
I was just thinking about as I'm going through these topics. I said, we've never had a good chance to argue anything about some sports. And look, once I get going, you see me. I mean, with these shows and how they start, man. Once these things get going, I'm on it.
We're very similar people because this will be fun because I'm very much going to be on it tonight.
Okay.
I have some opinions.
You have some opinions
about this stuff.
I'm just going to let you cook. Because I do so much talking. I do so much yapping. I feel like people are just maybe even tired of hearing me. So I'm just going to let you cook, all right? I'm going to go because there's a couple of these things. As I'm looking at a few of these topics, there's a couple of things I have a pretty strong opinion about, but we'll see, right? So let's start with the Braves. Obviously, big game for tonight. There's not enough ways for me to emphasize just how big of a game it is. Because if the Braves lose, they go home.
Do or die.
They go home if they lose, and that would be a shame. I mean, just to play as well as they've played throughout the season, win as many games as they've played, and to go home after 4 games in the first round in the National League Division Series, that would be not great, right?
And just getting this extreme sense of deja vu because this exactly happened last year. Lost the series 3-1 in Philadelphia against the Phillies. Phillies win game 1. Braves win game 2. Phillies win game 3 and 4. So just for a lot of these guys who were here last year, I gotta imagine they've got that in the back of their mind.
Yeah, and I think about it and I go, just think about the psychology of playing sports. I mean, when you play sport, just even when you're involved, I mean, we talk about so much about what these guys go through from game to game, but it is really hard. I mean, because you got to wonder a little bit, is that in their minds? Sometimes when a team just kind of repeatedly because coming to this series, I think we all knew, at least we all felt, the Braves were the more talented team. Just man for man, they had more talent, at least we felt like, than the Phillies. I mean, it played out through 162 games. The Braves were kind of far and above probably the best team in baseball, just when you watched them game in and game out. So I don't think it's a matter of Philly necessarily being the better baseball team, person for person. I just wonder a little bit, once a team beat you last year, how they beat the Braves, and then just kind of how this series has started. If they lose tonight, I've got to wonder, was this Phillies team just in their head? Like, do they just feel like they can't beat them,
Yeah, and part of it is I feel like the Braves have just been dealing with so many injuries, especially to that starting rotation.
Right.
Obviously, you had Max Fried come back for Game 2.
Yes.
But now you're relying on Bryce Elder, who got rocked around a little bit in Game 3, to say the least.
Really did.
And now you're returning to Spencer Strider in Game 4, who Game 1 did completely fine through 7 innings.
Absolutely.
And just was, he justified his placement as the ace of this Braves staff. Mm-hmm. And then the offense didn't back it up. And that's one of the big problems that the Braves have been facing in this series, is just, especially the back half of that lineup is just not there.
Right.
And you've got the Phillies, who every time they make bat hit ball, it seems like it goes 400 feet. So the problem for the Braves here is they're not converting hits into runs. They got like 6 hits
Right.
last night, only got 2 runs. Whereas the Phillies, it's basically a hit or run because every time they're hitting it, it seems like it's a home run.
Yeah, they're not missing a lot of those mistakes, right? I mean, when the Braves make a mistake for a pitch, the Phillies are making them pay. More specifically, like Bryce Harper, man.
Bryce Harper with that first home run. Bryce Elder just, pipes a middle fastball and just Bryce made him pay.
Yeah, they're not missing a lot of mistakes, right? I mean, when they get a pitch to hit, they're hitting it, and they're hitting it hard, And it is looking just the feel of the series. I mean, Braves going up to Philly, the fans go crazy. You just got to wonder what kind of environment that is, if it plays a role on you mentally. When you go into an environment like that, the fans are going crazy, everybody's against you, and you probably can't help but start thinking about, here we go again.
Yep.
Here we go again. In this situation where we won 8,000 regular season games, was the hottest team in all of baseball. But that just shows you the unpredictability of not just team sports, but of a series in baseball, where so many times we talk about it. When you get to this time of year, it's not necessarily about who the best team is. It's more so about who the team is playing the best that time of year. And we've seen it time and time. I know I've seen it so many times, and we've seen it already in this. Look at the Dodgers. They got swept. The Dodgers, after being
so
one of
the
best.
Orioles.
Yeah, and the Orioles, right? I mean, so it's so much about playing the best ball at the right time that wins this time of year.
And I have seen a lot of complaining online about, this new best 2 out of 3 wild card format is making the teams that get byes wait too long. And to me, I disagree. Just because, we have the Astros, who just turned the Twins into mincemeat. And then we have, take the Braves and the Dodgers. Neither of them had their starting rotations at full strength.
Correct.
If those rotations are at full strength, it's probably a much longer, much harder series for the Diamondbacks and Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, all that complaining, I don't like that this time of year when you have teams that complain about formats, you have fans that complain about formats. Not so much the players involved. I mean, they don't do a lot of complaining, but just the fans of these teams, when their team starts to lose, they start complaining about the format. And look, everybody knew what the format was before the playoffs started. Everybody knew what they were getting into before the playoffs started. If you're the best team, you'll win these games, right? Mm-hmm. The best remedy for all this stuff, the best remedy for what the format is, the best remedy for what you don't like is just go out there and win baseball games. Yep. And if you win enough baseball games, you will eventually get to where you need to be. And if you get sent home, it's because you weren't good enough or you didn't win enough baseball games.
I think we saw that borne out with Houston.
Right.
They had that waiting period, and they still turned a really hot Minnesota Twins team just completely on its head.
So let me ask you, what's your prediction for tonight? Hard, isn't it?
Yeah, but I gotta go Phillies here. I think that I think that offense is going to carry the day again, no matter what Spencer Strider does. And I don't trust, especially the back half of that Braves lineup.
Yeah.
Ronald Acuna Jr. is doing what he can. Matt Olson, Austin Riley, those first 3-4 guys are doing what they can, and then the back 5 are out here going like 1 for 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't win a series like that.
Yeah. Look, I can't dispute that, but I think the Braves will find a way tonight, right? I mean, I feel like they'll gut it out. I think tonight is a night where we'll see. I think Strider will I think he'll do well. But I think the Braves are going to find a way tonight. I just have a feeling, it was a gut feeling as I was just sort of looking at how things were playing out. I don't think they want this to happen to them 2 years in a row. I see them fighting tonight with a lot of I think it'll be, just kind of like a hard-fought game. I think Strider will pitch well. But I think more specifically, I think they'll get the good pitching and I think they'll get timely hitting, which is kind of what's been absent for them in this series. And I think they'll get some timely hits tonight. And I like them to drag this to a Game 5 right back here Saturday against the Phillies over at Truist Park.
I gotta disagree, but it could be the day where the Braves finally turn hits into runs.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we'll stay with this series a little bit, but one of the themes, one of the underlying, beefs or battles in this series was Bryce Harper. Hit a couple home runs last night, and on his way around the base pads, he gave a nice cold hard stare to Orlando Arcia. And so, kind of like the backstory behind that is, I guess Bryce heard through the grapevine that Arcia was maybe doing a little bit of talking about that, Game 2 when there was the deep fly ball late in the game, and then Bryce Harper got caught off the base pads, thrown out at first. That's how Game 2 ended. Phillies lose. And he heard about some things that Arcia was maybe saying in the locker room. He was like, "Attaboy, Bryce," and stuff like that, and maybe making fun of his base running mistake. And so Bryce, I guess trying to get him back the best way that he knows how, hits a couple home runs yesterday, and he gave an ice-cold gamesmanship stare to Orlando as he rounded those bases. Do you like that sort of thing, Al?
Look, I think Orlando Arcia is a complete idiot.
Wow.
Because what he said after Game 3 was the context here is he says all of that after Game 2 in the clubhouse while reporters are in the room.
Right.
Reporters report, and they put that out there.
Exactly.
And Orlando Arcia goes after Game 3, "Oh, I didn't know that was going to get out in public."
Didn't know.
What are you thinking?
Right.
What are you thinking? You are a public figure with reporters in the room.
In the crowded locker room.
Of course that's going to get reported on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have other players like Kevin Gausman, who isn't even in the playoffs, circling the wagons going, "Oh my God, why should we have to watch what we say in our own clubhouse?" Because that's going to get reported on. You've given Bryce Harper bulletin board material, and he used it.
He did. Boy, did he. Look, I've been in a lot of those locker rooms before, right? I mean, I've covered a lot of playoff series. I've been in a locker room, baseball, basketball, football. I've been in all those locker rooms after a game, just to get the. So look, I get their stance. I get a player's stance in that situation because he feels like, look, I mean, what. And that's more of an old school thing, right? That's more before people had phones in the locker room. I mean, look, these have changed life, right? Mm-hmm. They can't, be careful what you say because there could always be one of these hanging around. That's just the reality of the world we live in. And as a player in that situation, you have to adjust. I know back in the days, the guys who played many years ago, that was sort of the rule of the locker room. That was probably before I even started covering sports. It was more so whatever goes on in this locker room, whatever's said in this locker room stays in this locker room. But that's not life in 2023. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's just not the reality. You have to always assume that someone is either listening or watching or maybe even recording.
Yeah.
So I think this is just more so. But even bigger than that, though. Even bigger than that. Look, I feel like just as somebody to be a stand-up individual on that point, if you said it, you said it. I'm very serious when it comes to something like that. If you said it, you stand on it, period. And so I feel like RC in that situation,
he hasn't really owned up to it.
Right, and that's the thing. I feel like you should just own up to it and say, look, yeah, I said it. I said it, and it is what it is, and I stand on that. To me, I think that's how you get more respect from not just Bryce, but just the people involved, just to say, I said it, and I'm standing on it. But to not really own it, and everybody know you said it, and the guy you said it about knows you said it, and now he's making you eat those words. Yeah, I mean, it looks bad, especially when you start backpedaling from it. Me personally, I just have more respect for guys who just, you say something and you stand on it, and that's it.
Yeah. What he should have done is, I said it, I got, and we all move on. Frankly, I think this is being blown way out of proportion.
Of course.
But Arcia is not helping himself here.
Right.
He's just digging this hole deeper.
Of course it's blown out of proportion, right? It's the playoffs. especially between games, people don't have as much to talk about. That gives you a little nugget between games to do some talking and everything like that. So yeah,
we are talking about it,
and we're talking about it, and we're not the only ones who were talking about it. I mean, it was national stories and everything like that. After the game last night, I was watching the post game show with Curtis Granderson and Pedro Martinez, and those guys were talking about it. So people are going to talk about it, and you have to be prepared for that. He's got to know that. He's been playing baseball long enough, or just been a professional athlete long enough to know that there's nothing off the record. Yeah. There's nothing off the record, especially when you're in the locker room, you know. And
surrounded by reporters.
Surrounded by reporters and microphones.
Whose job it is to report these things.
Look, I've been in the press box before. I've been in the locker room before, and I've heard some things that I didn't go back with and everything like that. But that's just the kind of person I am. But a lot of those things are said. You know, I mean, I've been in locker rooms before. I've heard, you know, people who work for front offices of teams say things before that I'm sure they wouldn't want heard. And just the kind of person I am, I'm not really going to go back with those things. I'm not going to run and say, hey, guess what such and such said, you know. But there's a lot of people who will, because they're trying to earn their stripes as a reporter. They're trying to earn their stripes as a person who covers the team, and they're going to come out and speak on things that they hear like that. But it is what it is. But as a player, you have to know that and just adjust, you know. But, you know, it is what it is. I mean, we all, you know, we'll see what the Braves do tonight. We'll see what happens in that game, and we'll move forward. And I have a hunch there'll be a Game 5, but you don't think so? We'll see. So let's go on. So let's talk a little bit of football now. So the New England Patriots of 6 Super Bowl championship fame, you would think that would buy a head coach, one of the most legendary head coaches in the history of pro sports, Bill Belichick. You would think he probably earned the right to walk away whenever he wanted to, right? I mean, you would think that he's earned that right, and no one's going to let go of Bill Belichick, the great Bill Belichick. Well, you might have another thing coming, because there are reports on CBS.com that suggest that Patriots owner Robert Kraft would consider firing Bill Belichick if things were to continue spiraling in this direction. Right now, they're 1-4, I do believe. They're 1-4, and things aren't looking really good with their development of the young quarterback. Mac Jones has kind of been nothing short of disastrous. They're fresh off back-to-back 30-point losses, which has never happened in the tenure of Bill Belichick. And so that raised people's questions whether Bill would walk away, whether they would even consider pushing him out the door. And, man, I don't really know what I feel about that, but I was kind of surprised to hear that Kraft would consider pushing him out. That's one of those things where I would have to see it to believe it, you know?
So it was Brady the entire time, huh?
Well, look, it's hard to not feel that way, right? Because, look, I think every coach in any sport and any head coach is better served when they have a great quarterback. So I'm not gonna blow down on Belichick too bad for not being as good of a head coach without Tom Brady than he was with Tom Brady. However, yeah, I mean, it's very apparent now at this point, it's very apparent who the horse was and who the jockey was in that relationship, right? I mean, when you look at Tom Brady, when he left Bill Belichick, he immediately he went to a team in Tampa who hadn't made the playoffs in 13 seasons and immediately turned that into a Super Bowl championship team. They had some decent players and everything like that, of course. He didn't do it all by himself. But he took a team that hadn't made the playoffs in a really long time and made them Super Bowl champions. I mean, imagine that. Imagine a guy like Tom Brady leaving the Patriots, basically just pointing to an NFL team and going, who wants to go win a Super Bowl? Who wants to go win a Super Bowl? Tampa, you want to go win a Super Bowl? Okay, Tampa, let's go win a Super Bowl. He picks them, and they literally go win a Super Bowl in that season, just one season removed from him being in New England. So it's really hard to look at a situation and go, yeah, I mean, Sure, Bill Belichick played a role in Tom Brady's success, especially in the early days, having a strong defense, leading a strong defense and all that stuff, being a great coach. So, yeah, I don't doubt that Bill Belichick played a huge role in the Patriots' success. But at this point, it's no question that Tom Brady played the bigger role in those 6 Super Bowl championships.
Yeah, and part of it is the games just passed him by. As you said, Belichick's a defensive genius.
Yeah.
He's had some great defenses over the years.
Yeah.
Obviously, they did not win 6 Super Bowls just on the back of Tom Brady.
No.
But it's an offensive league now.
Correct.
What was the last Super Bowl champion to have a truly great defense?
Oh, man. Maybe Seattle in 2013. That's what I can really think of. And that was about 10 years ago when they beat the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Yeah.
I mean, you could maybe make an argument for the Broncos in 2015 when they beat the Panthers. But the Legion of Boom in 2013.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years. It's been, as you said, the game has passed him by.
It has.
He has not been able to develop Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi to be a starting caliber NFL quarterback. He just hasn't.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing there is that when you have a quarterback like Tom Brady, when you have such an alpha dog like Tom Brady, he can cover up for a lot of mistakes. I think over the years, the Patriots didn't necessarily draft that great, especially earlier on in the draft. They didn't put a whole lot of talent around him at the wide receiver position or at the running back position, but Brady was good enough to figure it out. You didn't have to have great players around him for him to have success. He would take a lot of those guys who were maybe marginal talents at wide receiver and make them significantly better than what they were. The ability to do that is no longer there. He's not there as that security blanket anymore. Now Brady's gone, and they're still trying to win football games the same way. They're trying to put marginal talent around the quarterback, decent receivers, but nothing special type receivers around the quarterback. And Mac Jones is not Tom Brady, right? I mean, and that's not a shot to Mac Jones because nobody else is Tom Brady. So I'm not here to blaming the man because he's not Tom Brady, but Belichick, you're right. Belichick has to evolve his way of thinking some and understand that this is a day and age of playmakers. You might have to score 30 points to win some of these NFL games now. And I just don't know that he thinks the game that way. I think he's more so thinking, all right, I could put this group of hard-working, less than talented guys around my quarterback, and we can still move the ball because that's what we have always done. Well, at this point, Bill, like you said, the game's changed a lot. And if you're not scoring points, you're probably not winning games. I mean, was the Super Bowl last year 38-35? You know what I mean?
It was a real high-scoring affair. So.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to score some points if you're going to beat Patrick Mahomes. You have to be able to score some points if you're going to beat the Eagles. You have to score some points if you're going to beat a lot of these teams now. And I just don't think Bill Belichick really still thinks the game that way. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is time they move on to a younger, more innovative, 40-year-old coach or, coach who's much younger than Bill Belichick that understands the NFL, understands how you win games in 2023.
And at least on a personal level, I just don't want to see him turn into football's Tony La Russa.
Yeah.
He's clearly on the downswing.
Yeah.
If he goes much further, it's just going to turn into a sad affair. He's not going to go out necessarily on top.
Yeah.
But he's going to go out ahead if he goes out. He retires after this season or, maybe next season. I don't want him to tarnish his legacy too much, even though he is relatively close to the all-time wins record. He is on the cusp of 300 wins. He is, on the cusp of being one of the few coaches to coach for 30 years. I don't think reaching those milestones is worth stat padding and just leaving these sad Patriots teams as your final legacy.
Tony La Russa, that's very well put. I think that's kind of the way this is headed. Oftentimes for legendary head coaches, this is how things end. I remember being a kid and watching some of those older coaches who people said were great, but in my lifetime they hadn't been great. And I'm like, why does everybody say this guy's great? When I was a kid and the great Tom Landry was kind of ended up his career with the Dallas Cowboys and Chuck Noll with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were at the end of their rope.
Talk about the Cowboys. For me as a kid, it was Bill Parcells.
Yeah,
I was a kid towards the end of his tenure, and it just...
Yeah, it's just, it kind of looks sad sometimes when those guys are kind of headed out. So, look, let's hope that comes to a... I think the best thing for everybody involved might be Bill Belichick just understanding that he's in the 70s and maybe stepping down at the end of the season. I mean, I think that's the way. If it goes down, I think that's the way the Patriots, and I'm sure Bob Kraft, their owner, probably would prefer it to go instead of him having to let him go, right? So one more little football story here. Little clip on CBS. It has Coach Prime basically with a scout from the Falcons watching his practice. Deion Sanders, obviously the head coach at the University of Colorado, a scout from Atlanta Falcons, is watching his practice, and he suggests, that they bring in both his sons. He wants them to draft his son Shadur at quarterback, and wants them to bring in Shiloh at safety. He wants his boys going to where he started his career right here in Atlanta for the Falcons. I ain't gonna lie, I think that'd be pretty cool. And I'm not trying to push Desmond Ridder aside, especially not this week because he played really well last week. But just from a total coolness standpoint, I think that'd be pretty dope.
I think it would be extremely cool.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think Deion should go with them as a coach.
Oh, that'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
That would be crazy, but I just think his sort of outsized personality is better suited for college football. When you think about college football, you have outsized personalities littered all over the place. You have, Lane Kiffin. You have, Mike Leach. May he rest in peace. He was a big outsized personality. You have Kirby Smart over in Athens.
True.
You have, these guys who the coaches can often be the story.
Yes.
And that's where Deion loves the attention, and I don't know if he would get that in the NFL.
Not as much, yeah, because, you know how it is. I mean, in college, like you just mentioned, in college football, it's more about the coaches, right? I mean, the coaches have, when you think about a college football program, you're thinking more about the coach than the players because the players are gone within a couple years anyway, and that coach is still there. In the NFL, it's the other way around. I mean, if your coaches are in and out every couple years. So, yeah, I mean, I think that his style and how he manages things and sort of how he goes about things probably is better suited for college football. But
Deion Sanders turned Colorado into a national story.
He did,
just by himself. College Game Day, and Fox Big Noon basically followed him around the country for the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
he wouldn't be able to do that in the NFL. He wouldn't be able to just command the attention of an entire industry.
You're right. Hey, I think that's very well put. So, I mean, but it is something that's nice to think about, right? It's something nice to think about that his boys coming here and starting their career at the same place where their dad started his legend.
Yeah. And neither of them are bad players. I don't think the Falcons would be any worse off by drafting them. So I don't disagree that it would be a good idea.
Yeah. So as we get out of here, as we round this up pretty soon here, what's on your mind, Alex?
So one of the broadcasters in the MLB playoffs this year has been Adam Wainwright, who just retired.
Yeah.
And he's been really good at it. Mm-hmm. He's been really good at it because he's been able to speak to specific players and their tendencies and his experience facing them as a pitcher. And I think that sort of broadcasting talent is something that we need more of, not to piss off any Braves fans, not John Smoltz, kvetching about how the game is different from when he played.
Right.
You need talent that can speak to the game as it is, even speaking to specific players, which is really cool and it's really fun. And I think he has a long career in the booth ahead of him, and I'm really excited for it.
He's kind of like a baseball Tony Romo, so that's pretty as far as how it goes. But real quick, what's on my mind though? So I've been listening to a lot of Gainesville native Deshaun Watson, who's a quarterback of the Cleveland Browns now. It's really been a kind of an interesting story this week up there, just because he missed their last game against the Ravens right before the bye week. And now he may miss this game against this next coming game against the Niners. And people are really kind of wondering about his physical and mental toughness and everything. Now, remember, the Browns gave him a record contract, $230 million, fully guaranteed. But let's remember, though, I mean, he didn't go to Cleveland because he really wanted to play there. He went there because he got that kind of a bag to go there, right? So, I mean, people now are questioning his heart, his toughness. Does he really want to play? Is he really dedicated to being here and everything like that? And it's just so weird because that narrative has changed so quickly. Everyone was so excited a few months ago and everything, and now the narrative has changed so fast to where people are, like, kind of seemingly quietly turning against him. So that's going to be something to really monitor as the NFL season goes along, because it seems like the tide has changed just a little bit. So we're going to wrap this up. Ellie, hey, this was amazing.
This was fun.
This was really fun. Your baseball knowledge is off the charts, and I appreciate you being in here. It was dope. We got to do it again soon.
Yep. See ya.
Appreciate you. Everybody, have a good night. Go Braves.